Hello, we're going to make some splash art, and to start with, as you can see, we're just going to pour a whole load of water on the middle of our paper and then add some coffee granules, or you can use a tea bag but use some warm water if you use that. Then we're going to just swirl it around a little bit so it makes a bit of an impression on the paper. Doesn't matter how much you cover, we're going to smudge it with other paper to just create a little bit of a shape. Here we go. Just pat it down gently, and you can put it back over onto the other side and create an even larger area if you want. It's quite subtle at this point. Then you can either let it dry naturally, or you can get a hairdryer, and that will in turn make some extra shapes as well. And here we go. This is what the result was. Doesn't look much at the moment, but what I tend to do is look for shapes like eyes. Then with a pencil, just draw around the shapes and you end up creating something rather amusing. Carry on, and then you can redraw exactly the same next to it, but using that as your guide. So I'm now going to draw about 3 of these funny little fellas and see how we go from there. Just keep it as simple as you can, because you don't want to have done anything too complicated when you're redrawing. Don't feel that you have to fill in every single mark that is on your paper. You're using this as a guide. It's a little bit like cloud watching. I don't know if any of you have ever done that, but it's just looking for shapes while staring at something. But it's quite good fun on the paper to create these silly cartoon characters, which you can then start thinking in the back of your mind, wonder what they're going to do if they were in a cartoon. So as you're doing these little sketches, maybe start thinking about where you think they might be on their first frame of a cartoon strip. For example, have they got hill behind them, or have they got the sunshine raining down on them, which I think is a little thought that I'm having with this one. But we can just leave it quite simply with the first drawings and then colour in. You don't have to go as far as making a little storyline. But if you are, and you're feeling rather adventurous, then perhaps keep it to 3 or 4 boxes, like you see in a newspaper cartoon, if you've ever seen one. And then the story has to be told very quickly and simply. And it's quite a nice way to start. So don't feel like you have to write an entire book. But there we go. So here are my 4 squares. Don't normally draw them straight away, but I'm thinking the main character standing there, he's got the sun beating down on him. So just again, very nice little lines. You make him look warm because he's got the little sweat beads coming on him. And then his friend's in the background. And he offers in an umbrella to keep him shaded. So now that comes next is colouring in them in, which again, you don't have to. But sometimes it's quite nice to add a bit of colour. And on this one, you'll see at the end why that colour is important. So just using watercolours very loosely around the pencil marks, not putting too much time into it. Oh, I've sped up. So the sun beating down in every single box there. And he's all red and warm in the first 3, as is his friend. And then under the umbrella he turns a nice blue, which usually represents a nice cold colour. So there's it in the watercolours. And then we're going to pop a little black line round it all with a black pen. You could probably do the writing a little neater than I have. And then you've got your first comic strip. So, sped up this time. Here we go again. We're going to just try another one. Completely different, and you'll see how different results come out. Now I'm going to do it in front of you so it's hopefully a little bit more explanatory. and easier to follow. Literally just grab two areas which to me might make eyes. They could be arms, legs, anything. You could be drawing an animal. All, of course, makes something look a bit strange. So, yeah, don't expect it to look very normal. But this one just reminded me of big eyes, a nose, and then a mouth. Now you can take that line and then you can make it a lot longer. Ooh. Eyebrows. Just remember, this is your initial drawing, so you can make this one your brilliant painting at the end of it if you like, but you can use these just to create your character. Yeah, because of the lines and the markings here, I think I'm going to give her slightly unusual hair. And then as I'm thinking that, I'm thinking, maybe if I was to do a bit of a comic strip, maybe her hair would be the main feature in this. Or her huge grin. Kind of just develops as you go along, so don't... Oh, teeth. Keep it simple, like I say, because if you want to redraw it, you don't want it too complicated. And just pop some shoulders in. She's got a very long neck on this one. Right, and now just very loosely around the coffee stain, just give her some crazy hair. Okay, and then from there we can fill her in a little bit more, give a bit more detail, like some crazy eyelashes. She looks a little bit startled. And by doing that in her mouth makes her teeth not bite on their bottom lip anymore. You create a space because you're giving a bit of a shadow. High cheekbones here going in. Again, just using the shaded pencil makes things stand out a little more. And this is just my loose background. I've had an idea, and for some reason it involves clouds. Again, very simple. I know you haven't got the coffee stain there, but this is how you can develop it. Okay, and then some, again, I'm just using watercolour, but you can use felt tips or pencils, or just leave it black and white. I'm just painting around her, and as you can see, I'm painting over where she's got the coffee stains. Keep it nice and loose. Now, for some reason, I'm thinking if I was developing this into a cartoon, I might make her hair something to do with the clouds. So we'll just see how that develops, but let's just finish in the main picture first. I'm using very watery paint here. And that in itself is a bit like the coffee, so then pools a little bit where you've got more water in the colour, and that creates quite a nice effect on its own, which is largely how you do a normal watercolour as well. So now we've got, oh, Now we're going to add some grass behind her, and in that way you can sort of see that she has background, whereas before she was just a head and you didn't know where she was. So now we've created a location for her. So she's outside. Obviously we kind of knew that with the clouds, but we didn't know whether it was going to be houses behind her or the sea. But as the sky is so blue on this particular day, I thought her standing on a hill or in the park somewhere would be rather nice. And she looks pretty happy about that, to be fair. Right, let's get my colour correct here. I really want it brown. Just mix it up a little bit more. Yes, pink. That's what I wanted. I've just managed to sludge some of my paints, which can often happen when you're hurrying along with a painting and you get a bit carried away, which is often the way. But the best thing to do is not to panic if you make an error like that. Just either go over it, or with watercolours you can add a bit more clean water and quickly dab it down with a bit of kitchen paper. And that way you usually get most of the mark off. And it is more difficult with watercolours to remove a mistake. So for me, as you get more confident, acrylics are fabulous paints because you can literally go over any mistake and you wouldn't know. So a nice big candy floss pink hair. Oh, can you believe it? Just like the clouds. Well, this was my thought. So this being the main painting, the first creation of this lady, now we have to work out why her hair ends up as pink like the clouds. And that is the angle I'm going to go on with my 4 or 3 box cartoon strip. Ooh, entirely sure about the colour of her eyes. Might have to change them. She looks a little bit angry, or she's got hay fever. I'm doing it very roughly here because I'm going to spend a little bit more time once I've got this initial idea down and then fine tune it. She does like a pink though, and purple. I'm slightly envious of her hair. Oh right, so while the grass is still a little wet behind her, big splodges, just a thought. See how they bleed into the ground? So then we can cover those with either pencil or the black pen at the end and make them into flowers. But if you're not so keen, you just hairdryer it and it reduces it, and you can always try and go over it again. But like I say, it's slightly more difficult with watercolour because it's a little unforgiving. But quite often I find if you make a mistake, sometimes that comes out as the best part of your painting. So never lose heart if you make a little error. Most of my favourite paintings that I've created in the past have come from mistakes, can you believe it? And then it creates a little idea and then off you go. Totally different path than you were expecting. So she's looking very glamorous. A few darker lines just to highlight that mouth. And I think we'll give her some, it's like a pink bun. Not an iced bun, just a hair bun. Although that's an idea for another cartoon idea. By all means, if you want to do some cartoon characters with cakes on their heads, feel free. Part of it is about creating something that you're, well, most of it actually is about creating something that you are happy with and that you like, and that, you know, particularly with cartoons, it might even make yourself giggle. So I'm doing very roughly. I usually use pencils that are HB, 2B, or maybe 3B, which are all softer leads, which means, because you get various weights of lead pencil, it just means you get a nicer mark, I think. If you've got an H pencil, which is a harder lead pencil, you tend to, as good as they are, you tend to create much more sort of dips in the paper, and I think sometimes that can spoil it. And particularly if you're just sketching, a B pencil is, I think, the best, as long as you haven't got too much pressure on it. They're easier to rub out, and again, you haven't made an indentation in your paper. But that's one of those things you experiment with and you find what you like, a bit with a paintbrush. I like a really, really tiny paintbrush for some of the detail I do, whereas other people do much more creative marks with a bigger brush, but it's just what you prefer. Oh, sorry about my hand right in the front of the page. Oh, there we go. Oh, don't forget that one, petal. Okay. Enough already. Oh, no, I'm going to keep going. Determined to get me outlines, you see. Then, as we did before, I'm going to take this character and just draw her in a much more simple way. Oh, there she is. Hang on a minute, there's a pink cloud approaching. It's behind her now. I don't know if you can tell what's happened to her hair. And there she is. Pink hair. So by drawing pretty much exactly the same picture every single time in each box on this one, I've just changed the position of the cloud, her eyeballs, so she's kind of looking at the cloud, and it's that simple really. So have fun, try and create anything you like, but most of all, enjoy.